Hello, like mother, like murder listeners. Today we have a special bonus for you all. When we first started this podcast 2 years ago, we had the incredible opportunity to share the story of Loretta Jones, a beautiful young mother who was taken too soon. Her case went unsolved for 46 years, but her persistent daughter, Heidi Jones-Asay, made sure that justice would be served for her mom's case.
Today, we're re-releasing our original coverage of Loretta's case and our wonderful interview with Heidi. We want to make sure you all get the chance to hear Heidi share her story. And if you want even more information on this case and Heidi's fight, you're in luck. Because on July 20th, Through the Keyhole was released, with contributions from Heidi herself and David Brewer, the detective who helped close the case. This book details Loretta's case and Heidi's fight for justice.
We hope that you guys enjoy the episodes and check out the book at the link in the show notes. Okay, love you. Bye.
Okay, love you. Bye.
Welcome to Like Mother, Like Murder. I am Rachel.
And I'm Heather.
We bring you the good,
the badass,
and the crime.
This is Like Mother, Like Murder.
All right, you guys. So in the first part of this episode, I have separated the audio from when we first covered Loretta Jones's murder on episode 6, back when we were wine time, and that is what you will be listening to now. So right now, you guys are listening. It is August, and August is Cold Case Awareness Month. So this month, I'm actually telling we're not going to hear from Heather as much. I'm sorry, you guys. She'll be back, I promise. But this month, I'm actually telling 2 different cold cases. And this one specifically is a cold case that was solved 46 years later. So there's a lot to say. I'm going to get straight into it. But stay tuned, because at the end of this episode, I actually have something that I'm going to share with you guys. So for any of you guys that just listen to the first 10 minutes, don't do that. Listen to all of it, because it's good. Yeah. And I will let you know what's up, because we got a little something special coming up for you guys pretty soon. So with that said, I'm going to tell you my story, Heather. Heather. I'm just going to put it bigger. All right. Oh, bigger. Right. Bigger. Did you see the poll wherever I did the poll on Instagram, and I was like, hey, which episode is your guys' favorite or whatever? And so many people were going in between like Wanda Holloway and Stacey Castor. And I was like, come on. Like, I think it's funny because Stacey's case is wild. It's crazy. Like,
it's
I
way
understand
good.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm still all about that banter and the Wanda Holloway.
I know. That was like the best one.
Yes, it was. Okay. Hope I can make this not 2 hours long. Let me get to reading. Okay, so July 31st, 1970, the Carbon County Police Department was called to a home in Price, Utah, where they found a 23-year-old Loretta Jones, her lifeless body, laying in a pool of her own blood in the living room of her home. This beautiful mother, daughter, and friend, her life was taken way too soon by the hands of a pitiful disgrace of a man named Tom Egley. Loretta Jones's case went cold for 46 years until finally in 2016, Egley was arrested and put behind bars where he should remain the rest of his life. Here's the tragic story of Loretta Jones. Loretta Jones was a single mother raising her daughter Heidi. They lived in what they thought was a safe community in Price, Utah, where they would get ice cream together and sit on the porch waving to their neighbors. It was a smaller town where everyone knew everyone, and if you didn't know them by name, you knew someone who knew that person. Loretta's father was a contractor and built many buildings and businesses, and he bought the home that Loretta and her daughter were living in. All the while, she was taking classes to become an accountant, but her life was taken away too soon. Heidi woke up the morning of the 31st, saying that she peeked through the keyhole before walking out of her room. When she came out, she saw her mom lying, murdered on the floor. She ran outside and saw a neighborhood boy digging for worms, and he had tried calling her over, but she said she couldn't because her mommy was dead. The boy, who was a little older, I believe he was like 9 or 10, ran over, looked into the home to see the awful scene. They both went to his home and told his mom, who then went over and saw Loretta's body herself and called the police as well as Loretta's parents. The police arrived and began doing their initial investigation immediately. Who could have done such an awful thing? They take pictures of Loretta. They search the home for anything they could find evidence-wise. They start questioning the family and friends. And on that very day, the 4-year-old daughter told the police and grandparents that Tom did it. Well, who was this Tom? Crazy enough, or maybe not crazy at all. Maybe exactly what should have been a huge red flag was the night before they found Loretta's body in the same neighborhood. A little girl named Lori was nearly kidnapped while she was playing outside of her home. Lori and her brothers were playing outside like they normally would, and she said she did notice that there was a man sitting under the light post with a yellow hat on, eating a burger, but her and her brothers just continued to play. Her brothers both had went inside, thinking that Lori was right behind them, but a few moments later, they heard screams and went back out front to see Lori in a panic, pointing down the street at a man who was running away. He dropped his yellow hat that he was wearing, and then he made sure to pick it up before continuing to run off into the distance. Lori told her family that the man had came up from behind her, put his hand over her mouth, picking her up, trying to take her. She had spit her gum into his hand, which
good job, girl,
alarmed him, and she screamed, which had apparently it caught him off guard, and she was able to get free and run away.
Good job. How old was she?
Everyone, you guys, pay attention to these things. You have to do anything. You gum in your mouth, spit in his, anything. Hit the person, scream, make any kind of, noise, movement to just alarm the other person.
Start
she was,
fucking swinging,
I think she was 10.
Man.
She was 10 years old, I believe.
You go, Glory. Good for you, girl.
Yes. So she was able to run free. This hat, though, that he had bent over to pick up was an important item when searching for the attempted kidnapper. Apparently, a yellow hat that had floral markings on it, and it was a worker's cap, wasn't very common.
Right.
And someone said that the yellow hat was hung outside of an apartment door next to where they had lived. So they were able to find him at the hotel that he was staying at that time and place him in a lineup for Lori to attempt to point out the man who, had tried to take her. So they had everyone lined up, and immediately she pointed at the man who was identified as Tom Egley. So Tom was arrested and booked for attempted kidnapping. And at this time, it was the police, they had began to look into, this Tom as the same Tom who a specific 4-year-old said killed her mom.
Right.
Timeline-wise, if you're following, a man named Tom attempted to kidnap a little girl in the same neighborhood that a woman was murdered in her home, where the daughter said a man named Tom did it the very next morning.
Come on. It's just right there.
Right there. So, obviously, even if it's right there, you can't arrest or convict someone without evidence. So, during Tom's stay in jail for his attempted kidnapping charges, they tried to figure out if he was the one who murdered Loretta. Over time and searching, they did not have the evidence that they needed. So Tom ended up being released a free man, where he was able to live his life for 46 freaking years, knowing damn well what he had done.
Such bullshit.
How do you even live with yourself? I don't
Because he's a freaking psychopath? Because he's trash?
The thing is, though, even though it took 46 years, he did get arrested, and he did get charged with Loretta's murder. And it was all because of a certain little 4-year-old girl whose life changed that awful morning when she lost her mom. Her name was Heidi, and she wasn't done fighting for justice for her mom. She said over the years she had tried to bring her mom's case back into the forefront of investigators' minds. She had contacted the Carbon County Police Department, the Utah Cold Case Coalition, as well as even trying to contact the new TV series Cold Case Files. But nothing ever came from it. While researching this case, in an interview with Heidi, who is now Heidi Jones-Asay, she stated how she had moved to California. She lived there for many years until it was finally time to make another change. California wasn't doing it for her, so she moved back to Utah. But before she did, she was talking with a good friend of hers, and she told her if she was going to go back home, she was going to get her mom's murder case solved. And that's exactly what she helped to do.
I just got
2009.
shivers.
Huh?
I just got goosebumps.
Goosebumps, shivers, yes. So 2009 is when things got started again. Heidi's car was stolen, and she had posted to Facebook about it. And a friend had actually commented on that post something along the lines of, "Too bad you're not closer. I work for the sheriff's department in Carbon County." And instantly, the bells in Heidi's head went off, and she knew she had to get in contact with him, because of her mom. His name is David Brewer. Heidi actually ran into, who's Detective Brewer, at the Helper Arts Festival in Utah. When I say ran into him, it was kind of on purpose. Like, she had actually planned to go there and talk to him, which, she made happen because she's a friggin' badass. So she, stalked him and figured out what he looked like currently and all the different things about him to make sure that she was going to see him, knowing that he was going to be there. So she ran into him, and she pretty much said, "Hey, my mom was murdered in 1970. Can you open her cold case and help me solve it?" And from that moment, it was go time. He told her to contact him Monday, which she did, telling him everything she knew and sending him every single thing that she had saved or found over the years that had to do with her mom's case. Unfortunately, over time, many of the things from Loretta Jones' case had been lost or damaged, so they did not have much to work with. Detective Brewer asked Loretta Jones' mother, Ludine, if they could exhume her body because they didn't have enough to work with. Everything that they should have had was gone.
So
any
crazy.
Evidence, any kind of pictures, any kind of reports, anything either wasn't available, was lost, was damaged, all of it.
What's the craziest part about that is you would think, especially like with a cold case, that those files, those evidence boxes, all of that would be like especially you know what I mean? Because like even though it's 1970, like they don't have like all the DNA stuff going yet, but like they know like technology comes and we can get to the point one day where we can solve it. So you would think that like especially with cold case files, they like lock that stuff down and they take extra care to make sure that this stuff isn't lost. It's just so crazy to me. Like think about how many cold cases just like sit there because evidence has just been destroyed or lost.
Another thing is, as time goes on, as technology evolves, and this is with any job, but I would assume all of those files aren't they hiring someone to
digitize
update all of those?
Yeah.
Exactly. So all of that should be progressing and moving forward in the way, with the times.
Right.
So yeah, that is crazy. But they didn't have that to work with. So because they didn't have that, Detective Brewer, I feel like he was at like a loss. So he actually went to Loretta Jones's mother, Ludine, and he had asked if they could exhume Loretta's body because they didn't have enough to work with. Right. And she was not having it. She's like, absolutely not. There's no way. So Detective Brewer, with the help of Heidi, continued forward, but they just kept hitting walls. One thing after another, they would try, but there was nothing that they could work with. And, this whole time, they know who it is.
Right.
It's just finding the way to say, this is why, this is how we can prove it.
Right.
It's him. So, finally, many years later, from when they started in 2009, in 2016, Detective Brewer brought up the idea of the exhumation again, but this time to Heidi, the daughter, because Loretta's mother, Ludine, had actually passed away. So he mentioned to Heidi, and her response, and I quote, was, "Get me a shovel and I will help you dig."
Yep.
And instantly, I said, "Give me a shovel, I will also help you. I will dig with you."
Yeah.
So during the exhumation process, though, water damage had completely ruined the coffin, and the ability to obtain any DNA evidence from Loretta's body that they were hoping for. This felt very defeating, but Heidi was still not going to give up. Although the exhumation didn't help in the way that they would have hoped, it still did help bring answers forward. The exhumation was widely publicized, and people started talking. First off, before I continue, if you know something in a case, in anything along these lines, I will say, you have to say something. Like, I feel like this is a good time to talk about this. If you've seen something, it could be scary, right? It can be, I don't even know how to say the things that I'm thinking right now. In so many cases, especially cold cases, people know things.
Right.
People are aware of things that have happened, but they either keep it to themselves for whatever reason. They're scared.
Right.
They don't like the police. They don't want to help. Whatever it may be, they don't want to get involved. The thing is people are, what's the word? Grieving. People are sad.
Yeah.
People are trying. People are spending their every waking hour trying to get answers. And you might have those answers.
Right.
You cannot keep these things to yourself. It makes no sense to me. So if you know something, you might think it's small. You might think they already know it, but they need to know.
So don't take the chance that they already know. Like, definitely just say something.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyways, this exhumation, like I said, it was publicized on purpose. That was one of the other things that they were trying to do. And people did start talking. So with that said, one person who spoke up was a family friend during the time that Loretta had been murdered. Her name was Linda. She contacted Heidi and asked if she could get into contact with Brewer, that she had something that he needed to see. She showed Detective Brewer that in one of the evidence photos from Loretta laying on the living room floor, you could make out a T and an O in blood by her arm.
That is so insane.
Loretta Jones attempted to spell out her murderer's name on the floor in her own blood before she died. I just got goosebumps.
Me too.
I will post the picture for you guys to see. But yes, so in this photo, which, they had seen.
Right.
The investigators saw this. They're aware of it. And, the thing is how I see it, sometimes you're so busy looking for something specific, you oversee something else, maybe. So it's like something as obvious as this photo evidence of T and an O being right there. I don't see how you can oversee it, but it's
especially
crazy. It's crazy.
After Heidi had said it was Tom.
Yeah.
It's so crazy that they wouldn't put this together.
Right, absolutely. So that's just one of the things that had came forward. And I don't know if that was brought up before. I'm not sure if that was ever brought up before, but the fact that just came out too, if that was the first time, where you been at?
Right.
Where have you been? Come on. So another person, Detective Brewer, had also gotten into contact with Marcia H. I'm just leaving her whole name out because I don't know why, but I am. So Marcia was, you could look her up. It's easy. So you got something to say it. But Marcia was actually dating Tom at the time of Loretta's murder and was pregnant with his child. So they were living together at the hotel that I spoke of earlier, the one, where he attempted to kidnap Lori, where his hat was hanging on the wall by the door. Anyways, so she was dating him. She was pregnant. But in the beginning, she didn't say anything. She didn't come up to the cops and say anything when Loretta was first murdered. Do I know why? No, I don't know why. Assuming she was scared.
I'm guessing
the point
she
is
was scared, yeah.
And how would you not be afraid of this guy? Look at what he's done. So Detective Brewer had tried talking to her, and at first she didn't want to talk. But she finally did, and she told Brewer that Tom was out that night of the 30th. And he had came home in the early morning hours of the 31st. He came home with blood on himself and on his clothing. Then he proceeded to take a bath. And in some sources, they say that he took his clothes off and then he bathed. And then in some sources, they say he actually just got into the bath with his clothes on.
Yeah. Trying to
Either way,
wash off extra evidence.
Yeah. Either way, he washed up and the next morning told Marcia he was going to go to the laundromat, which she said was odd because he never did laundry. She did the laundry. While he was doing laundry, and air quotes, if you could see me, like while he was doing laundry, another witness during that time actually said they saw Egley across the street. They were at another business, so they saw him across the street with a burning barrel
That is
next
so
to him.
insane.
So I don't understand how all of this didn't add up back then.
Right.
And it just goes again. If you know something, say something.
Right.
These are things that if they would have just been said during that time,
You wouldn't.
oh, evidence?
Yeah.
You're looking for evidence? Let me hand it over to you on a silver platter. Sorry, I get aggressive sometimes. Anyways, so that also makes me think, whatever clothes during the investigation during that time, you know, the investigators ask for evidence, or like the clothes you're wearing, they take pictures, they take samples of your hair, of your blood, whatever. And so it's like he did give clothes, but apparently they weren't the ones that he was wearing.
Definitely
Because he burnt them.
Mm-hmm.
He burnt them.
Yep.
So, oh, man. Okay. So, anyways, if you know something, say something. Okay. We're moving on. Another person came forward, and she had something crazy to say. Her name was Lisa Carter. She was actually the current neighbor of Egley's. She said that after the exhumation was all over the TV, remember, they wanted it highly publicized for a reason. Egley had came over asking if anything was going to happen, Egley had came over to her asking if anything was to happen to him, would she be able to take care of his dogs? Strange. That's strange. What are you thinking is going to happen to you, Egley? But another time, he actually asked, how long do you think DNA evidence lasts on a body?
Oh, my God.
Oh, Tom, you fucking idiot. Or you genius. I mean, you're setting it up for yourself. So, yes, I say you idiot, but at the same time, thank you. Lisa Carter offered to the police to wear a wire and try to get Tom to tell her what happened that night. And she did. He actually told Lisa everything. He did lie about some of it because he said that they had consensual sex, and then afterwards he stabbed her. But that part was a lie. He raped her. Then he cut her throat, and he stabbed her 17 times, leaving Loretta's dead body on the floor of her living room for her 4-year-old daughter to find the following morning.
So crazy.
Oh,
First, Lisa, you're freaking awesome.
Yes.
Like, it's so awesome when, like, I mean, she didn't have to do that, right? But she had a feeling. She was like, this guy's not good news. And she says, like, I'll wear a wire. I can get him to say it. Like, screw this guy, you know, like, and it's so just like, thank goodness for people like Lisa.
Yeah, seriously, if you know something, say it. This is the theme of the episode. At the same time, how hard would that be to sit there and, I mean, you have this hunch, you have this suspicion, you could even actually know it. But to sit there and actually, in that moment, hear someone give up this confession.
Right.
I don't know. I mean,
she just knew, like, she probably knew in the back of her head. She's like, I just got to sit here. I got to keep a straight face. I got to do this because this, like, I got to get this guy. And she just, you know, she's a boss for being able to do that.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So one of the things that breaks my heart, but at the same time, no, it just breaks my heart. But Heidi said in one of the interviews is that she didn't remember hearing anything that night. Yeah. And I truly believe that, you know, Loretta had stayed quiet, like as quiet as she could to keep Heidi
protect
safe.
her. Yeah.
Right. And how do you stay quiet? But the thing is like to just do everything. She did everything. She stayed quiet so her daughter could stay safe. She literally tried to
Spell out his
paint it
name.
out on the floor in her blood to give you like the investigator something.
Right.
It's wild.
She did
It's wild.
everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah, she did.
It's amazing.
So, with that wire though, they had a confession. Detective Brewer called Heidi and told her that he needed to tell her something. And he ended up showing her pictures, showing her photos of Tom Egley being arrested, wearing pink handcuffs.
Yeah, buddy.
I love that part. Yeah, so he showed the pictures, and she was just, like, baffled. Like, oh, my God, did it happen? Did it happen? 46 years she had to live with this, knowing who it was the entire time. And finally, she gets that photo, gets that God, what's the right word? Like that just moment of like, I did it. We did it.
Right.
It's happening. He's about to be where he needs to be. So August of 2016, like I said numerous times, 46 years later, Tom Egley was arrested for the murder of Loretta Jones. In October of 2016, Tom sat in court where he was sentenced to 10 years to life for his crime. He ended up getting sentenced to 20 years. And Loretta Jones' daughter, Heidi Jones-Asay, sat in the courthouse every single day to make her presence known to this monster. Mm-hmm. She described him as a fragile and frail-looking being and said he didn't age well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, this guy spends the remainder of his life behind bars where he belongs. That was the very sad case of Loretta Jones, whose life was taken way, way, way too soon. Now that I have told you Loretta Jones' story, I have something else to share with you all. I know at the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that I would be telling you guys something at the end of this. So here we are. This case is so tragic and sad, but one of the main things that I take from it, and hopefully many of you can take from it as well, is never give up. Why do I want to cry? This case was cold for 46 years. Heidi's mom, Loretta, was gone from her for 46 years, and she kept trying time and time again. She wasn't going to take no for an answer and continued to exhaust all of her options. She created her own case folder and tried to get her mom's case open time and time again. Well, eventually it worked. And although it took way too long, Heidi's consistency and strength to push through all of it, the no's and the roadblocks, and just continue to never give up, it got the man who was responsible for all of this locked up. And I just think she's a fucking badass who
really
gives hope
is.
to others. Yeah.
That's what's so amazing about her is that there are so many points along that freaking 46 years where, I mean, so many people could have just been like, there's nothing else to do. There's no other road. There's no other option, right? Like, I mean, it happened when she's so young. They, for whatever reason, I feel like, there was just nothing there. But she kept it in the, like, she could have just said, well, it is what it is, but she didn't. She kept at it. And then even all those years later, when she gets in touch with, Detective Brewer, and he's like, well, there's no evidence. And she's like, well, here's what I have. At that point, he's like, well, there's not a lot here. Like, at that point, she goes, well, if there's not a lot there, there's not a lot there. But she kept going. And then when the grandmother was like, no exhumation, she could have said, well, then there goes that option. She could have stopped there. She kept going. And then even when the exhumation, like when there was nothing, like no physical evidence they could pull from the exhumation, she's like, it doesn't matter. Like, we're still gonna fight for this. And had they not like decided, like, even without, the physical evidence from the exhumation, like, we're still publicizing, like, we're still making this as public as possible, eventually that leads to where, you're able to get that confession from that piece of crap. But like, there's so many points along that road where she could have easily said, look, there's nothing else I can do. But she kept at it, and she had that strength, and she had that persistence. And it's just amazing, that they were able to, get to where they're at now. And it's just, it really goes to show like her badassness. Like,
yes,
for
yeah,
100%.
Yeah. So that her badass, she gives hope to others that it's possible.
Yeah.
You just have to keep trying. You have to keep going. And with that said, Heather and I got the chance to talk with Heidi and get her story firsthand. And we're going to share that with you guys. Tomorrow, I will be dropping our interview episode with Miss Heidi Jones-Asay, where she gives more insight about her mom's case, her life growing up, and how she helped to solve, her mom's murder case and put that fucking monster behind bars where he belongs. Mm-hmm. The day her mom's life was taken, she told the officers Tom did it. And she tells us all about her journey to get him locked up. So, come back tomorrow. Listen to that episode. Heidi is an amazing person who we truly just enjoyed getting to talk to. And I think she's just an inspiration to anyone and everyone to keep going and to just believe. So enjoy tomorrow's bonus episode, and we'll talk to you guys next Thursday. Okay, now, as we mentioned, for anyone who hasn't gone back and listened, or if you're new here, hello, we did get to talk with Heidi, and that is what I'm going to play for you guys now. I cut the audio so that it's only the talk with Heidi and nothing else. If you want the entire episode, you can go back and listen. That's episode 7. It was a bonus. And please bear with our audio. We have come a long way, in my opinion, when it comes to this sound and us as podcasters as well. So here is this amazing human. So I want to start off with you telling us about your mom. She was taken away way too soon, but what are some of the memories that you have with her and who she was as a person?
So my mom, Loretta Jones, she was 23 years old and I was 4. She was a single mother, and we lived in a house in Price, Utah that my grandfather had bought. And I was her world. We would, go get ice cream together. We would sit on the front porch and watch the neighbors go by. We'd wave at the neighbors. Yeah. She was studying to become an accountant. So she was taking correspondence courses at home.
Right.
So she could spend more time with me. And, we would do everything together. I know she loved me more than anything in the world. One of my memories of her is she was ironing her clothes. Mm-hmm. And I had my little ironing board and my little pretend iron, and I'd stand alongside her and iron my clothes.
Right.
And she made me a doll. One of the few items that I still have to this day that, but she made me this cute little doll. I named the doll Dea because she made it in the day.
Yeah. No, that's so cute.
She loved to sew, and she was very good at it. She made a lot of her own clothes. She made my clothes, and of course, the doll that I have, stuffed animals she made. She was just the absolute best mom for me.
Right. Yeah, no, from you saying that, she seems very present, she just wanted to be around you. You were her world, like you said. Right. That is so amazing.
Both Rachel and I are girl moms, and I think there's definitely something special about, the relationship you have with a daughter. So that's awesome.
Absolutely, for sure. Okay, so we're getting right into it. Can you tell us about your last night home with your mom and what you remember from that night?
Well, unfortunately, because I was 4,
Right.
I don't really remember a whole lot, if anything, of that particular night. I don't remember being sent to bed. I don't remember, did I take a bath? I don't remember any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember anything until the next morning.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
things that happened during that night, I believe that, like my mom came to the one door and told me, don't come out no matter what, or don't come out of your room. And
Right.
I know that I heard noises.
Right.
And the way that I know that I heard
Right.
noises was because of, in the morning when I went to leave my room, and I can't say it was when I woke up. I'm not sure about that. I have blocked it out
Of
so
course. Of course.
Of
well.
course. Yeah, definitely.
And so, the next morning, my first memory is that morning, walking over to my door and looking through the keyhole. And, back in 1970, we had one of the skeleton keyholes. So you'd look through the keyhole and be able to see what was going on in the next room. So, I looked out the keyhole that morning, and
Right.
that's when I saw,
When you saw
yeah.
July 30th, 1970, you woke up to a tragic event no one should ever have to wake up to. Could you tell us what you remember from your point of view as a young child that day?
So on the morning of July 30th, 1970, or July 31st, actually, when I found her.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Okay.
So it from the police reports and everything, I never left my room until about 11 o'clock in the morning. So between 10:30 and 11 in the morning. My first memory is going to the door and looking through the keyhole, and I see something laying on the front room floor.
Right.
And at first I thought it was just like maybe some laundry or some clothes laying on the floor. And then I opened my door, and it was my mom, and there was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
And there was blood on the floor, blood on the couch. And then I don't remember if I went over and I touched her body or any of that. My next memory is I go out the front door, and I see my neighbor Lance, and he was outside digging for worms to go fishing. And he says, Heidi, come here, I got to show you something.
Right.
And I says, I can't. I think my mommy's dead.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lance came running over, looked through the window, grabbed me. We went to his house next door. Then his mom, from what I understand, his mom went over and saw my mom laying there on the floor.
Yeah.
And then she's the one that called the police. And I remember sitting in their house, sitting around the kitchen table, waiting for my grandparents and the police to come.
Right. So yeah, he went over, he looked. The mom went over, she looked, and then they called. How close were your grandparents because she called your grandparents as well, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
were they near you?
They lived across town, so
Okay.
Price wasn't very big. So it would take maybe 7 minutes to get there.
Okay. All right. So hopefully they got there soon. I feel like I couldn't imagine what you were going through. Obviously, no one should or can, but to be sitting there in that moment, just, oh. Okay. So after the cops were called and the investigation began, word came out that another crime was committed in your neighborhood that night. Egley had tried to kidnap a little girl from her yard. He did end up getting arrested for that attempted kidnapping, and during this time, they also tried to make a case against him when it came to your mom, which obviously ridiculously failed since 46 years later. You were so young during this time, but looking back on it now, like, how does that make you feel? Like, when you look back, they did a little bit of an investigation. You talked to your grandma. You told them who it was. So how, looking back on it, do you feel?
So looking back on it, it's very frustrating that, I was there. I knew who did it. I told him it was Tom. I repeatedly told the police it was Tom.
Right.
He was arrested for the kidnapping of Lori.
Yes.
And then he was sitting in jail waiting, waiting for the charges to be filed against my mom, and they took too long, and so the judge was able to, release him. His attorney was able to make a case that he was being held for something that they didn't have all the evidence that they needed to have. So at the time, of course, I don't remember all of this, but later in life, it's just mind blowing,
Yeah, absolutely.
I know growing up, the police would come over and ask me quite frequently about that night, and I tell them Tom did it. Tom did it. Tom's the one that killed my mom. And then her case went cold, and then later, I think it was in the mid to late 70s, probably late 70s. My grandmother had made little notes of things that happened in life. And I found, after she passed away, I found a notebook where she said that, the police had came and talked to it. So it was actually 10 years later. I remember that. And she said the police had come to talk to her about Loretta's case again. And, but nothing was done. So, but, at that time, there was no DNA. We didn't do DNA back in the 70s. So it's basically a 4-year-old girl telling you that Tom did it. And from what I understand, there was another Tom that my mom had knew. So they weren't quite sure on which Tom. But,
Well, how about the Tom that was arrested for being in the same freaking neighborhood that night and committing another crime? I mean, come on. That seems to be obvious.
Hard. It's not hard.
Right.
It's
then go ahead. Sorry.
Nope, it's all you.
And then also that night, his girlfriend his pregnant girlfriend that he had, she remembers him coming back and bathing in his clothes, and then the next morning he burned his clothes, and so
yeah, that part, just I have that a little bit later, where it's like who Brewer talks to, and she's one of them, and just that, how do you stay quiet? You just posted on your Facebook post. You have to say the things that you hear or sometimes you're afraid, sometimes you're scared. The thing is you have to. That's the only way to get those people who should not be out around other people locked up and where they belong. It's not okay. And we also have to be able to provide a safe way for people to feel comfortable to speak up and to say these things. Because I mean, I don't know in her case, I don't know her, but from what I read, and obviously he's an awful, terrible, ridiculously fucked up person. Maybe she was afraid, but the thing is you have to just say something. You have to say something. Before you had brought that up, I was going to say, when you were talking about the DNA, I remember you saying in one of the cases too, you didn't even have 911. So when you were a child too, that's like another thing that you didn't have that came later. Gosh. That, that's just that time. The times are so different. And
because right outside my bedroom was where the telephone was. If I would have been able to, if we had 911, but I would have to have found a phone book to figure out, Carbon County Sheriff's number, or I'd have to, hopefully I remember my grandparents' phone number, but,
I mean, you're 4. Like, that's hard.
You did everything.
Oh my gosh.
You did everything right in that moment. It's just like a testament of like how you were raised and what you knew to do, and you went out. Like, I mean, you don't remember everything that happened that morning, that night, but from what you've said, you went and you got help, and that's all you could do.
Right.
Man, okay. So you were really young when all of this happened, and you ended up moving in with your grandparents, right? So could you tell us a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing after all of this?
So my grandparents, they were my mom's parents, of course, and I moved in with them, and, they had, let's see, five. So there's a total of 5 sisters and 3 brothers that I currently have. But when I moved in with them, there were so my Aunt Carolyn, my Aunt Lila, and my Uncle Brian that lived in the house. And then Carolyn ended up moving out. She was, at 18, get ready to move
of
out.
age to be
Right. And so then it was me and Brian and Lila, and then Lila moved out shortly after that. And so, you know, my grandparents, they were crushed. They had lost a daughter, not just, but in a horrific way. My grandfather was a contractor in town. He built a lot of the well-known buildings around town. He built a lot of the houses. In 1973, they adopted me. So, so all my aunts and uncles became my brothers and sisters. So, my sister aunts, my, uncle brother.
Yeah, I was going to say brunkles,
right.
Or how would you say?
Brunkle, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So they became all my, my personal siblings. And then my grandfather in 1974, he was building, it was, the front of a hotel, and he actually suffered a heart attack and he passed away. So, so then so my grandma mom, my grandma, she became a single mom, and, she pretty much had me and Brian at home at that time. And, she did the best for us that she could. And I feel like everything that I went through, I had a pretty decent childhood, if you will.
Yeah.
I had,
everyone's just trying to do their best. She's trying, but at the same time, you're grieving. You're trying to cope and grow, but so is she. So it's like, and so is everyone that knew your mom. So at that same time, and then losing your grandfather and then her husband. So it's just all of that all at once, where it's like everyone is trying to just do their best to move forward.
Right.
So
and it was hard to talk about my mom. It would just make my grandma cry. It would make my grandpa upset. And once my grandpa passed away, we pretty much just stopped talking about it. It was just something that we didn't talk about. In later in life, I'd bring it up, and it would just make my grandma cry, and I hated it. I hated being the one to make her cry all the time.
Yeah.
So we stopped talking about it. I stopped asking questions, and this was the way it was going to be, and go on with life.
But that's got to be hard for you as a child. You're trying to process it, and so it's you kind of in a tough situation. And I'm sure your grandma in a tough situation where she's, she wants to be there for you and wants to help you process that, but at the same time, it's got to be incredibly hard for her as well. But it's so hard. You're a kid. You're trying to cope, and then you're trying to cope in the way that how to talking to someone who your grandma, but then you also don't want to make your grandma upset. So you're even as a child, as an adult, that puts you in a really difficult situation. Even as a child, even more so. It's got to be so hard to learn how to come back from that.
Right. Well, and growing up, I was always the outspoken one. I was always the one that stated my opinion. I talked a little too much at times. And
that got you a long way in the end.
And I would say that is a strength. I would say both Rachel and I have that same quality.
Yeah.
I talk too much. I don't know if it's wanted.
Well, in elementary school, I was pretty shy. I was pretty shy and quiet. And then in junior high, I came out of my shell. In high school, definitely. So, and then, later in life, I moved to California, I came back, and I'll tell you this, there was this time that I was asking my grandma mom about my mom, and it was just making her upset. And I just told her, look, I'm sick of competing with you. I'm sick of trying to figure out who hurts worse. I understand it was your daughter. I know that you hurt, but it was my mom. I hurt too. So, I mean, that was kind of a breaking point in our relationship because it, you know, yeah, we're both still grieving after all these years. So,
Yeah. I don't like to hear the breaking point, but yeah, I got goosebumps. That part is really hard, but you have to speak up for yourself, like you said. It came to a point where you have to. I don't have this in the notes. I'm wondering. I don't know if you don't want to talk about this. Did you go to any kind of therapy, or what was your kind of thing to kind of help you in those times to, you know, kind of get through any kind of mental moment that you were having or emotional struggle or anything?
well, there wasn't really counselors to go talk to back then.
Oh, this time difference.
Yeah,
Enough time. Oh, gosh.
I
there
want to
wasn't-
transport back to time and just hold you. Man.
well,
Seriously.
you know, there, like, I couldn't just, you know, call somebody and say, hey, I need some therapy. I didn't even know what therapy was.
Right.
Absolutely. Okay.
So-
well, that's put me in my place. My little 1990 born place. Man.
You know, I'm sure there was some place that we could go and talk to somebody at that point, but
Yeah.
I didn't know about therapy.
Right.
I kind of, you know, I just didn't talk about it. And then I was in, I believe it was high school, in my creative writing class. I wrote this poem about my mom, and I stood up and read it. And I'm a sophomore, junior in high school, and I'm reading this horrific poem about my mom's murder and how much I missed her, you know?
Yeah.
And people are just like, what? So, I mean, I have
Yeah.
that say they had no idea until I did that. But it was a way for me to start to try and talk about it to somebody, you know?
Yeah,
So,
since you felt like you had been well, you didn't say this, but I feel like you had felt shut down, or as if you weren't really able to have that outlet that you very much needed growing up. So that's, that part is hard. Oh man. So you had just mentioned how you had went from Utah to California and then back. So you went to California. Why'd you go there? What'd you do there? And then when did you come back?
Okay, so I let's see, in 1986, I packed my bags, packed a little U-Haul behind my Camaro, and moved to San Jose, California with my boyfriend.
Oh, okay.
He had moved out there and he was working and everything, and I just figured, hey, why not? Let's, you know, so I told my grandma that I was moving and she wasn't happy, but I just, you know, I just didn't know what I wanted to do in Price, Utah. And so I moved to California. And so I was in the real estate industry for 20 years. I did everything but sell real estate. I worked at the San Jose Real Estate Board for years. I was a title rep. I was tech support. I was computer support for a ton of realtors, and taught classes on how to use a computer, how to search for a listing, how to make a flyer on how to sell a house. You know,
no, that's awesome.
So,
Wow.
I have family in real estate. I wonder if they took any of your classes. They're in California.
Well,
I don't think
San
the
Jose,
same area, though.
You know. But yeah, so then I was there for 20 years, and you know, I just got to the point where I wasn't making good choices any longer, and I thought, you know what, I need to go back home. I need to make a change. And one of my best friends, Lulu, bless her heart, we would she always encouraged me to talk about my mom and everything, and so
you need that friend. That, oh, my heart.
Yes.
That makes me
Bless you, Lulu.
Lulu,
Like, that
I
is
want to talk to
exactly
Lulu
who
too.
you need in your life.
Yes. Okay, sorry.
So,
keep going. I love her.
when I was getting ready to say my goodbyes to Lulu, you know, I said, well, if I'm going to go back to Utah, I might as well, you know, try and get my mom's murder case solved.
Yes.
Said, you go, girl, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Heck yeah. Of
But,
course.
during that time of living in San Jose, so it was, let's see, 1989. So 1989, there was a show that came out on television called Unsolved Mysteries.
Right.
And I thought, So I wrote the TV show
Yeah.
to see if they would maybe help me solve my mom's murder case.
Yeah.
And while living in California, I was able to pick and choose who I told my story to.
Right.
Nobody knew,
Right.
they
must have
didn't
been a
know,
big difference for you.
right.
From
You're the
being
little girl
home.
who, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
So then, in 1989, I wrote Cold Case File or Unsolved Mystery, sorry. And I never heard back from them. But while I was in the letter writing mode, I thought, well, shoot. So I wrote to the Carbon County Sheriff. I wrote to Price City Police. I wrote to the judge. I wrote to absolutely everybody that I could think of that
Yeah. Good for
worked
you.
on my mom's case.
Right.
And I got, I got a letter back from Albert Pasick, who was the Carbon County Sheriff at the time. And he was a nice guy. I remember him coming and interviewing me as a child. And he believed they had the right guy, but there just wasn't enough evidence to do anything. And so, I wrote to the FBI. The FBI wrote me back. So I gathered this little, all these letters and all this, and I put them in a folder, and I just saved them.
Right.
But, after a little while, I was hitting another brick wall. It was another brick wall. Nobody knew anything. Nobody could tell me anything. Where are the records? Where are the files? There aren't any records. There aren't any files. I can't send you anything on it because there's nothing there.
Yeah.
So it was just like, okay. So then I just kind of left it alone for a while. And
you feel defeated at a point where
Right.
you feel like you've just continued and tried and kept going and been kind of turned away, or
right.
like you said, they just didn't respond, or they didn't contact you whatsoever. So you
Right.
get to a point where you just feel like you hit a wall, and no one likes those walls. We need to tear down all of those walls. I'm gonna blow up these walls.
Right.
I hate that. I hate that for you. Okay, so you left California, and you went back to Utah.
Right. So in 2006, I my two sister aunts, Carol and Lila and their husbands came out, and we packed everything up and moved me back to Utah.
Yes.
And I lived with Lila for a while up in northern Utah and everything, and then I was working and not in real estate, not in computers, and then I had moved into a roommate situation. I was renting a room out of a basement, and it was the 4th of July weekend in let's see, 19.
I was going to say 2009, right? Because that
right.
was the next.
Thank
that's
you.
where I was going. Yep, that was the next one. You keep going.
I get mushy brain. I have
It's
to
okay.
say, okay, where was I?
Got you.
So then in 2009, I moved in, and it was the 4th of July, and went to bed that night for 4th of July, and went out the next morning, and my car was stolen. And my little Honda Civic. And so I posted it on Facebook that my car had been stolen. And, prior to that, I, had my Facebook account, and I was going through, adding friends, and, oh yeah, I remember this guy from high school. Oh, I remember her,
I know him.
all
I know
that
her.
stuff. Yeah. And, oh, look, David Brewer. Oh, yeah, I remember him when he worked at McDonald's, and added him. And then, so I end up, posting that my car was stolen. And David had responded, and he says, well, too bad you're not closer. And I said, what? What do you mean? Aren't you in California? And he says, no, I work at the Carbon County Sheriff's Office. And I was like, what?
Yeah. You're like, the alarms
So,
went off. Ding, ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding, 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 ding.
exactly. So
Oh,
that was in July. So then in August, there's a big arts festival they have here in Helper, and it's called the Helper Arts Festival. So I made plans to come down for the Helper Arts Festival. And, so eventually my car was returned 3 weeks later.
returned?
They found
What did they
it.
do? Just put it back at your driveway then one of the nights and you woke up to it again?
No,
What do
so
you
it
mean?
was found like 3 blocks away, believe it or
Oh
not.
my
And they had
gosh.
taken the subwoofer and the amp.
Oh, you were
Oh my gosh.
raging. What was in
Yeah,
your
so-
stereo
Oh my
at that time?
gosh.
What were you listening to?
I know.
In a Honda Civic, right?
Well,
Yeah.
see.
I was going to say, what were you blasting in that Honda?
Right? Oh, 80s rock. Is there anything else to listen to?
I love it. Yes, good.
A little Y&T and some autograph is the best.
Yes, go.
I
I
know.
love that.
You have no clue, and that's okay.
I have not heard of Autograph. But now I'm gonna go look it up. I always do research. So I will
Autograph.
go and listen.
Turn Up the Radio is the name of their
Oh.
biggest hit.
Nice.
Actually, we can I think we're allowed to play a 10-second clip of whatever
We'll
we
play
want.
10
We should
seconds
open
of it,
with
Oh, nice.
Well, you should have been. Last night we were testing our audio, and to make sure that the sound was on point, we all just started singing Bohemian Rhapsody. So there
We
was
did.
that to make sure that we.
Yeah.
That's good.
Oh no, we were not good.
No, it was bad. I mean, we tried, but it was actually very
man.
bad.
Yeah, I should not
Rendition
sing,
of
but
it.
we do a lot of singing, unnecessary singing, unwanted singing. I
I
am
think anyone
positive.
who knows us thinks like they sing way too much.
Yeah, I get that. I sing off key, so it's all good.
That's all besides the point. Well, with all of that, like I personally, so that is actually one of the things when I first started like researching your mom's story and then like learning about you and your part in this case, like I loved this part of the story because it showed like how assertive and how much of like a badass you were and that you were not going to let any stone go unturned. You,
Right.
At that point it's go time. Like Lulu
Right.
said, like you told her, I'm going to go do this, and you meant it, right? So
Right.
from there,
Right.
can you tell us about like you got a hold of Detective Brewer and then
Right.
what was the process after that?
So, once I posted on Facebook about my car, and David, I figured out was working or he told me that he was working for the sheriff's office.
Crazy.
I had this ding, ding, ding moment, hey, I need to go talk to him. And so the arts festival was in August, and I found out that he was going with his wife and kids. And so I made a point to make sure I knew what he looked like, because after all that time,
Yeah.
he had changed. He didn't look like he
Right.
did in high school. So I made sure to look at his profile picture. I made sure to study what kind of sunglasses. And this totally sounds like a stalking case. It's
No, you
not.
do what you have to do.
You know what? You do what you need
Yes,
to do.
yes.
You're doing
So-
what you needed to
Yes.
do.
Right. So I just made sure I knew what he looked like. And then I came down for the arts festival and just walked around, and lo and behold, there he was. And I walked up to him. I kind of hit him on the shoulder and I said, David freaking Brewer.
Oh
We
man.
just- And he just kind of looked at me like, what the hell? And I says, hey, I'm Heidi Jones. And he's like, oh, hey, Heidi.
Oh
and I-
my gosh. Oh, his
So-
voice. The voice that you have for him is the best.
Oh, you like that?
It's the best.
So, small talk for a minute. And I says, hey, since you're working at the sheriff's office now, my mom was murdered in 1970 in Price,
Right.
and the case was never solved. And I find out that he was rolling his eyes behind his sunglasses going, oh yeah, here we go,
Oh,
but
no.
he's like, oh, okay, why don't you just give me a call on Monday? And I'm like, okay, great. I'm all excited about it. And secretly he's going, oh man,
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
so on Monday, I called him up and I told him everything about my mom's case. And I started sending him copies of all the letters I had written. I sent him copies of all the newspaper clippings I had gathered. And he had never heard of this case before.
Right.
And so then he started looking into it and doing some research and, found out that case files were taken home and basements flooded and just
Things are gone.
there
Things are
was
missing.
nothing. Right.
Gosh.
That is just unacceptable. Like,
Right.
where is the vault that doesn't get ruined? Ugh,
Right?
gosh.
Well, see, and plus they had a new building for the sheriff's office, so files got moved, and maybe something got shoved aside, and
Yeah,
this
so
was
how do we do better moving forward? Because that's
I know,
unacceptable. That is
right?
completely unacceptable.
It can't be
Right.
the first time that a sheriff's office has moved. Like, I mean, figure it out, guys.
but see, now we have all this great technology. Back then, it was
Right.
pieces of paper photocopied and in a white box with a lid, and a flood happens, it gets destroyed, and so thank God for technology.
Right.
Mhm.
Not everything back then was saved to the cloud, Heather. Just there was no 911 and no cloud.
Right.
Gosh, come on. We're learning. So I have on here, like, so 2009, you got into contact with Detective Brewer. Then in 2016, so, I mean, throughout that process, you were telling him things. You were
Right.
giving him the information.
Right. So,
And then
go ahead.
I was going to say, and then the next thing that I have is how in 2016 your mom's body was exhumed. And that must have just been an emotional roller coaster for you. But your goal was to get answers and get who you knew was the murderer behind bars. So it's like, I mean, if you have more between that time period, please let us know. Of course, I know you were making moves.
Yeah. So in 2009, I started working on it again. 2010, 2011, it was, nothing was really going on. 2012, I moved back to Carbon County. And I had met my future husband at that time in 2012. And then
Woohoo!
I ended up moving down here. And so in 2012, so there was right away from 2009, 10, 11, there was, time to do some research, but not really anything was being done. And then let's see, 2013, not much was being done. 2013, I believe it was. He said something to me about, well, maybe we should try exhuming your mom's body. And I says, well, that we'd have to do it at night in the dark and nobody could know, because there's no way my grandmother would have allowed that. No way.
Wow.
And so then let's see, 2014, 2015, my grandmother passed away. And then David was like going to some cold case conferences, and there were some new possibilities that we could try and do. And so then in 2016 is when it really started to take off. So let's see, to back up, in 2014, I went and met with the Carbon County District Attorney, and he told me without any physical evidence, there was nothing they could do. Without physical evidence or without a confession, there was nothing they could do. And so, just kind of, then my grandmother passed away. And then in 2016, it was on fire what we did in 2016. So
yeah, you were like, no, we are going today. It is go time right now. Yeah.
So I know that David had went and interviewed Egley and had went and seen him, and he remembered my mom. He remembered me, which is creepy, but
That is
So
yeah,
creepy.
no.
and he was living in Rocky Ford, Colorado, and so David had asked him some questions about my mom and about the K, about what should happen to somebody that did this, and
Yeah.
he said at one point, well, it depends on if they've done it again or not.
Ah,
No, it doesn't.
no,
It does
no,
not.
it doesn't.
Right.
Are you
No, it
freaking
doesn't.
kidding me?
Yeah, that's not the
So-
correct answer whatsoever, sir. Actually,
Right.
goodness gracious, like.
So then we were working on the case. We played with the idea of exhuming my mom's body, and then David asked me one day, he says, well, what do you think if we exhume your mom's body? And I said, give me a shovel, I'll help dig.
Yes,
And-
Yes. Get it.
And because at that point, there was, my grandmother wasn't there. I didn't have to worry about
right.
any of that. And he said, okay, we're going to do this. And we came up with a plan. We invited every single news person that we could think of, and so the day of the actual exhumation, it was just the police officials, the coroner, the medical examiner's office,
Mhm.
and there was a wonderful professor here at the college who teaches homicide classes, Rachel Walton. She was there. So David says, oh, you don't need to go. And so I went. And so me and my husband go, and we pull into the cemetery. And it's a really small cemetery. And we pull in, and I says, holy crap, who are all these people?
You're like, what
who are all
is
these
this?
people? Why are they here?
Yeah,
And so I had to make sure I figured out who everybody was.
right.
And so then Kevin and I were there, and when they started when the backhoe got to the point where it was getting ready to bring the vault out,
Right.
there was not a cloud in the sky that day. And then all of a sudden, this whirlwind came through the cemetery, and David said, oh, there's Ludine. And that's my grandma, because she was so dead.
Oh my
"No, you
gosh,
can't do this."
no.
Oh,
Yeah,
No.
it was, I mean, the trees, the wind, I mean, it was crazy. And it was her way of letting us know that she was there. She wasn't happy about what we were doing, but she was there.
I was gonna
And,
say maybe it was
Oh my
it was her
gosh. I
in
have
her way
chills. That's
granting
crazy.
permission. Rather, I mean, it's all about perspective. It's all about
Right,
how you want to
okay.
look at things. So you can think of it as she was like, no, I said no, but you can also think
Right.
of it as I'm not here, and you're gonna do what you're gonna do.
Right.
I'm giving you my shovel. I am giving you my So
Right. Yeah,
Oh.
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah. So David said, there's Ludine. She came through, and then they get the vault. They're pulling the vault out of the ground, and lo and behold, the vault slants to one side, and it's full of water.
Yeah.
And so water
Ugh.
just starts draining out.
Yeah.
But we have to go
How
on
did
with
you
it.
feel in
Right.
that moment when you saw that? What was your
Well,
feeling?
The crazy thing is everybody's like, oh no, it's over. Oh, just forget it, But I was like, no, there's probably something in there. There's something in there,
Mhm.
So I didn't realize how bad it was until heard the next day. But we had a plan. We were doing this, and we weren't stopping. So they put the vault on the back of the truck, and Kevin and I followed the vault out, and then the rest of the police officers and everybody. We had this little parade of cars. We're driving out, and pretty soon they turned left, and we had to keep going straight. And I lost it. It was like, mommy, mommy, mommy. She was gone all over again. She was always in the ground. She was always in that place. And for the first time in all those years, she wasn't going to be where she's supposed to be.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, it was such a crazy feeling. I don't even know how to describe it. But
I feel like you just did. I feel it all over my body, but just your feeling of like, I don't feel like that ever goes away. Like, yeah, that was different.
Right.
She was around, and you felt her presence, her being there. So
yeah. So then they turn left, we go straight, and then the next day we have to have another funeral as quick as possible. We just kind of threw it all together, and we found out that so I knew that my mom had been buried in a wooden casket. So her casket was wooden. She was buried under a sprinkler, and there was nothing left.
Gotcha.
There was
just like deteriorated. It was gone.
Right. So there was some remnants of her clothing, and her
just look to the side. Did you see? Do you have it?
What?
Her clothing?
No. So there were just like remnants. No. So you could tell like that was probably the lace of the dress, and there was like a femur bone. Her dentures were still intact, and then I knew she was buried with her class ring. So I asked David if he could get her class ring for me, and he actually found 2 rings. So he found a little black ring that it was onyx. Mm-hmm. I later found out it was what single women wore back in the 70s to stop the questions. So not single women, single mothers. Mm-hmm. Sorry. They wore on their wedding finger to stop people, asking questions. And then he also found her class ring. So
I got one of those.
There's her class ring.
Oh, beautiful.
Oh my gosh, I just got chills. That's amazing.
And the other ring unfortunately broke. So but so the next day we had this whole plan. We invited every news station, everybody we possibly could. And we just told them that we were going to be waiting for DNA. It was going to be 4 to 6 weeks. We had a story. We were sticking to it. Nobody knew exactly the extent of what was actually left.
Right.
So, so then so that night, David said, I need this news to get to Rocky Ford. And I was on it. My old next door neighbor's best friend lived in Rocky Ford, Colorado.
Okay.
So as soon as I posted it on Facebook, it was in Rocky Ford within minutes. Right. And and Egley asked his neighbor, hey, how long does DNA last on a body?
Yeah.
And so he knew about it, and he was squirming. So I called David, and I told him, well, he knows. And he says, what do you mean he knows? And I said, well, he knows. How does he know?
So you knew her?
So I knew my old next door neighbor, her best friend lives in Rocky Ford.
Okay.
So she called someone.
Right.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And pretty soon Tom was talking to his next door neighbor, Lisa.
Yeah. So I said, like, the exhumation, obviously it didn't bring any answers that you guys were hoping for or that you guys were wanting. But
Right.
it did bring conversation because it was widely publicized. And that's
Right.
something that needed to happen. So some
Right.
people started talking. And this is also what Detective Brewer, he got into contact with. I had said Tom's ex, which you had mentioned a little bit earlier about her and her story. And then, you know, obviously Lisa, is it Lisa Carter? Was that the neighbor
Right.
of his?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then also I mentioned Linda. So yeah, keep telling us about Lisa and how she
So,
said all of that stuff, because that is insane.
yeah, so Tom started talking to Lisa and just telling him, you know, there was this woman back in Price, and you know, Lisa said, well, they exhumed her body, you know, they found DNA, and he just started talking, and so I David said, Heidi, how would you feel about signing a letter that you won't sue Tom in court for his personal belongings? And I'm like, okay, I'll sign it, whatever I have to do. And then, you know, pretty soon, you know, the Attorney General's office is involved, and you know, we were making a case
Right.
because he started talking to Lisa and he didn't stop talking.
Yeah.
She wore a wire,
Yes.
and he confessed every detail of that night to
Oh
Lisa.
my gosh. Yeah.
So,
Oh my
and
God.
he claims that he didn't know that I was in the next room. That's what his claim was. But where else would I be?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
Seriously, where would you be?
He says he remembered you. He had to have known.
He
Right.
He knew where you were.
Right.
And obviously your mom also, because I will believe forever that she stayed quiet to keep you
Yeah.
safe and did
Right.
everything that she
Yeah.
could to protect you and, you know,
Right.
keep you safe in that moment. So he can go fuck himself. Sorry.
Right.
Excuse my
Big
language.
time.
But yeah, so she wore that wire. He admitted, he confessed everything to her, and
Right.
she brought that information to Detective Brewer, right? So
Right.
then after
Right.
that, he called you and said that he needed to talk to you. And
Right.
how did that conversation go? 'Cause
Well, so back in, I don't know, 2009, I made this bet with Brewer. I told him, hey, if you I found out he was a huge Oakland Raiders fan.
boo.
Um,
Don't
and
tell him I said that.
I said, hey, if you solve my mom's murder case, I'll get a Raiders tattoo.
Yeah.
And he said, okay.
I gotta see this.
No.
I gotta see it.
Oh, let's see.
Show me.
No
yes.
way.
Yes.
Gosh, that's so great.
That's amazing.
It's not little.
No. But hey, he deserves that big tattoo on your leg. And
Right.
you do too. Okay, keep going. So you told him you were gonna get it. If he
Right.
solved
So
it.
then he tells me, Heidi, I remember the phone call. I remember it was late at night, and he's like, you know, Egley confessed. And I'm like, what? He confessed? And he says, yeah, he confessed. And I'm sorry. The phone call when he told me that he confessed was during the day. You know, he called and he says, Heidi, where are you at? And I said, well, I'm in the parking lot. And he says, okay, can you talk for a minute? And I'm like, yeah. And him and Wally Hendricks were on the phone, and they're like, Egley confessed.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Egley confessed. What do you mean he confessed? He confessed. And I
Yeah.
mean, it was mind blowing.
Yeah.
And it was happy tears and just mind blowing.
Right.
And then later that night, he called back and, you know, telling me some other details. And I says, oh, crap, I got to get that Raiders tattoo. Yeah. And he says,
held
you know,
up your
I've
end of the
forgotten
deal.
all about that. But
No,
So-
that's amazing that you got that.
right. So
I
then
love
we,
that.
you know, the Attorney General's comes down and we, you know, take him to court and everything. I made the decision to drop the rape charge because Egley would admit guilt to the murder if I dropped the rape charge.
Okay.
So I dropped the rape charge, and it didn't matter because he confessed to it all in court anyway. But yeah,
You know what you know. Everyone
Right.
knows. Everybody knows.
Right.
Whether you
Right.
want to say, you know, yes or no, or drop this or drop that. Everyone knows what you did,
Everyone knows
what
the truth.
happened, and,
Right.
okay. But
Right.
at that same point, you did what you had to do to still follow out and execute the exact same thing that you said you were going to do. And you
Right.
did it. You did it.
Right. Right.
So, oh my gosh. So, he was arrested in it was August of 2016, right? And then
Right.
convicted in October of 2016, and you were there. So,
Right.
how was that with you being there during that day?
I went to every court appearance of his. I made sure I was there. Made sure he seen me. The first time I was expecting the big bad boogeyman, and here it is, this little short man, frail.
Yeah.
But not somebody I was feeling sorry for, but
No.
he did not age well.
I just want to kick him in his
Karma's
face.
a bitch, you motherfucker.
Yeah, seriously. Sorry. We get a little crazy towards the end of these ones. I just want to kick him in the face. Like, fucking Jesus.
Right. So, he was actually sentenced on my husband's birthday, November 22nd.
Yes.
That's my dad's birthday.
Oh, nice.
Well, yeah.
And so they take it back to the 1970 statutes of, everything.
Right.
And so he was sentenced 10 to life.
Right.
But they gave him 20 years. So he won't be eligible for parole for 20 years.
Okay.
So So, and then of course, if he's still alive at that time, I will go before the parole board. And anybody else that wants to go.
Yeah, we are in your corner. We are in your corner. That day, I have to say, that day is not coming. As you just said, he did not age well. He is not going to get better. He is not going to do better. He is dying in prison where he belongs. And, what is it? He's, 82?
Right.
82-ish right now. So, I mean, it was, I think you had said 36. So 2036 was going to be his parole date. So no, we're not making it. We're not making it there. No one needs to think about that.
Right. Nobody needs to put their calendar.
We 100% will be following along and paying attention and, staying in contact with you and keeping up with everything that has to do with this case. But, if it ever does come when he's 100 billion fucking years old, we'll be in your corner. And,
for sure.
He's not going anywhere. But
yeah, I think I figured he'd be 90, 93, 96. He would be in his 90s. Yeah.
I don't know how he lived with himself this long. The fact that he's made it just makes absolutely no sense to me.
Right.
But
yeah.
You will be absolutely ready for your chance to tell him to go F himself again. That's how that'll go when the time comes, if it comes. I did tell Heather, I am an avid Morbid listener. And of course, if they ever do, when they do, if you do, whoever does, I will proudly be sporting my Die Mad Tom t-shirt, 100%.
Right.
Oh, actually, real quick, can you tell Heather about the pink handcuffs? Because I feel like that was a thing.
Oh, so
I told her.
So when Egley was arrested, he had David had a set of pink handcuffs made, and he was arrested in a set of pink handcuffs.
Yes.
David has those, and then when he was actually taken to prison,
Yeah.
That's
What
amazing.
does that say at the bottom?
it says "Sit kas habus." It means "Let there be peace" in Latin.
Yes.
So these are the ones he actually wore to the Utah State Prison.
Oh my
And then
gosh.
it's got November 29th, 2016. That's the day that he arrived as an inmate at the prison.
Wow.
And those were a gift from Brewer. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad you have those. I'm glad that he was taking in pink handcuffs, because that's just like another like shut
That
it,
is so
boy,
great.
you little
Right?
boy. um, so I have a couple more questions if you have a little
Okay.
bit
No,
more
you're fine.
time. I mean, he's there, obviously, stay there forever. We're in your corner forever, all of it. I just want to know, like, how you're doing right now. It's years later, but when we lose people, obviously, that never goes away. So how are you now, and, like, what have you been up to recently?
So, I'm doing good. Being able to talk about my mom, the cemetery is like 30 minutes away, and I go decorate her grave. It's a very peaceful place. My grandparents are there. My mom is there. Life is good today. Um, I There's a sense of peace that it's just a wonderful feeling, and it doesn't mean that I've you know forgiven him for any
Right.
means.
Right.
It just means that the hate, that ugly resentment hate, that I carried around for so many years, it's not eating me up.
Right.
Um,
Good.
so, my husband and I, we have a great life together, and
Good.
I share my story as often as I can. And, my biggest thing is, we did it without DNA. We
Right.
had a plan. We stuck to the plan and we did it. And anybody that's, struggling with cold cases, um, you know, I always say, as long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Yes.
And, I believed with my whole heart that we were going to solve it. I had to believe that we were going to solve my mom's case.
Right.
And never ever give up, because I hit so many brick walls through this whole process that it would have been easy to give up, but you can't.
Right.
I have friends that I talk to on Facebook, and it's just sad. 1% of cold cases get solved.
Oh my gosh.
That's unacceptable. That's
Right.
crazy.
So
But if, like you said, if people don't speak up, if people do
right.
not do their part, if they know something, if they saw something, whether it's they know for a fact, or oh well, this was odd, or this was weird, or
Right.
someone said this, you have to say anything and everything. So
Right. And just to piggyback on that. So for instance, Linda, who lived with my grandparents for a
oh
while,
yes,
um, Linda messaged me one day, and she says, Heidi, I have something, I don't know, maybe I should talk to Brewer about it. I don't know. Do you have his number? And I wasn't quite sure what she was talking about. And I said, yeah, here, give him a call. And Linda called and told him, hey, did you know Loretta wrote T and O in her own blood as she was dying?
right.
And David said, this sounds a little too Hollywood-ish to me, but she wrote it out. She drew it out on a piece of paper for him. And lo and behold, it just happened to be in the exact same spot that we have a photograph of the crime scene that my grandparents had taken with the T and the O that was written in blood.
Yeah.
So
insane.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you just brought that up too, because I was trying to let you just go. You were flowing so perfectly with everything as you were saying it, that after we talked about Lisa, I didn't say that. But yeah, that is crazy. I remember I pulled up that photo because it was in a video, so I had to stop the video and take a picture of it, and I showed my boyfriend, and I was like, look at this. Like, how people see this. When you are looking for a certain something, you look at every single thing, and maybe in the moment you're not like, is this a fact, or is this real? Because sometimes you can believe like, oh, this is something, right, when you're investigating something. that was the most obvious, like, I am doing this to help you guys figure this out. And I mean, that on top of the fact that you, as a 4-year-old, said it was Tom. Someone called in and said it was Tom. Other people said it was Tom. He was arrested in the area the same night. It was Tom. There were so many things that he did not need to be out of jail for 46 years, living his life, having other kids, doing his own things, you know, and the fact that you eventually, obviously, I mean, not even eventually, the entire time you were doing things. So I didn't mean that. But to finally get him where he belongs, I am just so happy for you in that moment, because you've already been through enough, and you know now that at least that part of justice was served. So that's where he needs to be. Oh man, sorry. I felt like I was preaching just now. I was like, "Ooh, I got into it." I was wondering.
Yes, you go, girl.
I was wondering, you know, with everything that you've been through the years, you know, as you said, August is Cold Case Awareness Month, and I was just wondering if you're a part of any organizations or anything that you advocate for that you would either want the listeners to know about, like anything that you could give insight or knowledge about cold case wise, or like even how to go about solving a case, since you did that as well.
Well, you know, there's a cold case coalition here in Utah. Every state, I hope, has a cold case coalition. You know, I'm just a firm believer of, if you know something, say something. And you know, I became friends with many, I mean, it's heartbreaking, many other people that have a case that hasn't been solved. And you know, I've offered, here's what we've done. This is how we did it, and if I can help, let me know. As far as an organization, you know, I'm just very familiar with the Cold Case Coalition here in Utah. You know, they didn't work on my mom's case. It was all handled here by, you know, Carbon County Sheriff's Office, which was fantastic.
Can you see, Heather, I don't know if you hear like a difference in the noise?
I thought it was
Heidi,
just
I don't
me
know if
though.
you touched something like on your
Your
microphone,
voice like
or
kind
on
of
your
changed
thing.
a little, but I thought it
Just
was
at
just
the
me.
very end of that, I heard you different, so I don't know what that was.
Oh, I don't either. I haven't moved.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know.
It might just be the connection or something.
I'm like,
that.
maybe your phone's overheating because we've kept you past hours.
I know.
I don't know if it's that. I just wanted to see, you know, is there anything else that you'd like to say or add about your mom, her story, your story, or anything before we go?
You know, I think the best thing that I can say is, if, you know, you have a cold case, you know, never give up. As long as you have hope, you have a chance.
Yes.
I know my mom would have went to great lengths if anything happened to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, I loved her more than anything in the whole wide world. At 4 years old, she was my whole world.
Right.
And, you know, it was just, I had to do this.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy, but it was worth it, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
It took you some time, but it's like you know, you had her, she had you. I mean, everything she was doing, from what you said in the beginning of her going to school and her, you know, spending that time with you, everything was for you, for the, you know, just the two of you guys to do better, to be better, and to have that.
Right.
And you had to make it a point to figure it out. And it took way too long. I am so sorry that you had to deal with that for so long, because I mean, I know, like we said earlier, obviously, even with the conviction, even with him in jail, you still hurt, right? But it's like knowing that he is there where he belongs. If you could have had that weight lifted long ago, what difference things could have, you know, made, right? So I wish that would have happened, but it did happen a little later than you wanted,
Yes.
and we are so happy that he's there. And like we said earlier, we are in your corner 100% of the way. We thank you so much for being here with us. It's unfortunate that this was, our topic today, but that story, her story, your mom's story, needs to be told, and everyone should hear about her. From how you've explained her and her pictures that you've posted and that I've seen, she seemed like a beautiful person inside and out. And as for you, you too are a beautiful person inside and out, and just a friggin' badass. And I am obsessed with you.
Badass.
I'm obsessed with you. If I ever need help with anything, I am contacting you.
I know. We know who to call.
Yes.
Deal.
Just like Rachel said, I'm just so happy that the way that you put it was so beautiful, that you think about it every day, and it's not that you've forgiven him, but you do have peace. And for you to have that, it just makes me so happy. And like Rachel said, I so wish for you that had come way more than freaking 46 years later. But it makes me so happy that you have that peace. And if anything can be something that people going through your situation can see and to strive for, is that's amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Before we go, I would like, so our podcast is a mom cast, and I feel like your quote that you came up through this time was amazing, and it's short, it's simple, it's sweet, but it's straight to the point, and it is exactly what I feel like so many people need in this kind of situation, in any kind of situation, because it is just strictly, it's just powerful, it's meaningful. So if you could say that one more time for everyone to hear, I would appreciate that.
As long as you have hope, you have a chance.
There you have it. Thank you guys for listening, and I want to encourage each and every one of you to please go out and buy this book, Through the Keyhole by Shawnee Barnes. It is available now. It came out July 20th. I am currently reading it now. I paused my reading only to get this episode out to you guys, and I urge you all to go and buy it. The book link will be in the show notes, as well as plastered all over our social medias. Heidi Jones-Asay and Detective Brewer are both a huge part of this book as well. And if you have listened to Loretta Jones's story, you only have a glimpse of everything. This book will give you so much more. So please, please, please go and get it on Amazon, or you can listen on your Kindle or whatever you have as well, okay? I hope you all go and do that, and stay tuned for the next time that we get to have Heidi on and talk with her. I cannot wait for that. You guys, we will talk to you guys next Tuesday. Okay, love you. Bye.